Hi, Melanie. Very nice that you could join us here today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here today with Melanie Smithson, all the way from Denver in Colorado. And we're here today to talk about the upcoming weekend workshop here in Beautiful Bergen, the weekend of 17th to 19th of September. And it's a workshop called Move, Play, Release. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
And let's not forget the subtitle, Gemma, about get the bleep out of the way.
And get the bleep out of the way. And luckily, I don't even have to edit that out of this. So if I can get back to explaining who we're inviting here to Bergen, is Melanie Smithson. And she's a certified Sedona Method coach. But in addition to that, she's also a board-certified dance and movement therapist. She's also a licensed professional counselor and a certified Life Between Lives hypnotherapist. And she's been working with people in a therapeutic capacity for 15 years. So, obviously our objective is to release, because we know that we tend to get the bleep in our own way, and that when we release, we tend to gravitate to much higher order feelings and thinking that help really facilitate us having more of what we want in life. So specifically, can you help us understand better how we can incorporate movement to help us release more deeply and effectively?
Yeah, sure. And it's funny, Gemma, as we brought up, the subtitle of this workshop is, just get the bleep out of the way and, try and refrain from the profanities, at least on the tape. And you could even, look at that as like, when you say, let's just get out of the way, it's like, move out of the way. Yeah. And so much of, I believe that life, when we let it unfold by itself, holds riches that we couldn't possibly imagine in our own, limited minds. And so all of my work has, been to this point, bottom line is just let what the universe wants to do happen through you. And of course that, sounds easy and, and it could actually be effortless, but as we go through our day to day, we have so many thoughts about how life should be and what we should do in order to make life work that for the most part, those thoughts aren't helping us. Right. And so, learning where the mind can be useful and learning where it shows up and stops us from having is, really becomes a lot of the work that we have to do. And in my experience, moving is the best way to get out of the mind. In fact, it reminds me just, do you think you can dance in Norway? So there was a dance a few weeks ago that was choreographed with a therapist and the dancer, and the music was get out of your mind. Get out of your mind, get out of your mind. And so for me, that's what dancing does, is it takes me out of my mind, which is a very restful place and joyful. So that's why we bring the movement and the play into the releasing to empower it, so that it becomes easy to get out of the mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful perspective, because, you probably found as well that sometimes working with people releasing, we have a tendency to get into our minds. We tend to do it as a very intellectual process. And, then we start spinning.
Yes.
And that kind of is how many of us live our lives. So it sounds like the body's a very grounding place.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, Hale talks about even when he started releasing that he was a head releaser. And it took his body a while to catch up. And I think that is, probably true for most, that, if you start as a head releaser, that eventually the mind will catch up if you stay with it. But when you start to add the practices of movement and play, you actually increase the odds and accelerate the process of making it a full body experience. And that's really important. My training as a body-oriented therapist, a dance movement therapist, is basically that the body holds what's not processed. So when we have emotions as children that for one reason or another, we were told that wasn't okay to express. And, that comes across in so many different ways. Either, somebody directly says, sorry, no feelings allowed, or, just somebody else is more important. Maybe there's a sick sibling, or the family is, there's too many children. So there are a lot of reasons that we learn to suppress our feelings. Mm-hmm. And those get held in the body. So if we're doing all of our psychotherapy, all of our releasing just in the head and not moving them from the body, we're not completing the work. So, that's, that's the basic premise of dance movement therapy, is to complete the movement.
So, what kind of movements are we going to be doing? Are we doing cartwheels or skipping?
I haven't done a cartwheel in a good 20 years, so that's probably not going to happen. And I'm actually glad you asked that question, because I know that there are a lot of people that get intimidated by the creative processes. In fact, for me, if you start to say we're going to draw, there's that part of me that goes, before I recognize that, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Yeah. And with movement, there's two things. One is that movement happens on a huge continuum. So there are subtle movements that are happening all the time. They're, happening even as we sit here and speak. The body, the heart is beating and the fluids are moving and stuff is happening without our attention in the body. And even just bringing attention to the movement that's already happening in the body is a very powerful process. And then movements, get bigger and bigger and bigger, where we're throwing ourselves all around the room. And that may or may not happen. It may happen for some and not for others. So, but what really becomes important in movement is finding the authentic move, what really wants to happen. In fact, one of my teachers here the other day made a comment that really struck me. She said that peace is found in neither exaggerating nor diminishing movement. And so, and that also, correlates to our lives, but in movement itself, we've been taught since we were little, in classrooms to sit still. Mm-hmm. And, for most of us, sitting still is not the authentic movement. Mm-hmm. And so, then we have the, opposite effect. Sometimes where movement gets too big, we get crazy, we get out of control. So as we start to allow what really wants to happen, then that movement can actually support us and teach us. And as we learn that in the body, it translates, it creates a bridge into our lives. So what's the authentic movement, or what's the authentic word, or what's the authentic action that wants to happen here? Mm-hmm.